okay,
Uh, mhm,
let me know once you guys can see my screen.
I can see it. Hello
You can-
and welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Let me start with a quick introduction. My name is Shamsul Arifin. I'm a leader of this chapter, and I'm currently working as a TA with Tectonic. Alongside me is a special guest speaker, Azlan Allahwala. He's an experienced architect and also working as a technical architect with Tectonic. Uh, We have another special guest joining us, Kuratulan. She is a Salesforce MVP and runs her own Trailblazer group. So very happy to have you join us. Now moving on to the main topic of today's session, which is external objects in Salesforce. So to take us through, I will hand over to Aslan to start.
Okay, thank you so much, Shams. And so, good day, everyone. My name is Zan Lawala, and I'm truly honored to be among this community today. Over the past 7 years, I have had the privilege of serving as a Salesforce architect, gaining invaluable experience across a diverse range of Salesforce clouds. Today, I'm really excited to dive into a specific area of Salesforce that holds immense potential, which is external objects. These innovative components play a pivotal role in bridging data from various sources, opening up new horizons for organization as businesses. So that was a little bit of my introduction and stuff like that. So I'm going to move forward. This is the topic for today. You can, if you want, you can follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So I mentioned it here on the slide. It's Aslan Lavala. Okay, moving forward to the agenda. I'm going to pause for 10 to 15 seconds. You guys can go through the agenda and then we're going to start talking about it. Okay, I think we are good. I'm going to move to the next slide, which is interesting Salesforce facts. So this is kind of like an off topic, but I thought I should add it. And this is kind of like what I like to do, throw out interesting Salesforce facts. So the first interesting, in fact, the only interesting Salesforce fact for today is mistaking Salesforce for a regular database. Now, what that means is that Salesforce, while it has a number of surface level similarities to relational databases, namely tables, we have objects, and relationships, we have lookups, master data relationships that enable us to use it as an RDBMS, but technically it is not a relational database and should not be treated as such. So whenever we are like, designing our object model, we need to take this into consideration. Anyways, this is probably a fact that I wanted to share with the group. So now we're going to go to our main topic, which is external objects in Salesforce. So, external objects in Salesforce. So, in the dynamic world of Salesforce, managing and harnessing data is paramount to achieving success. Salesforce external object represents a powerful feature that opens up new dimensions for data integration and accessibility within the Salesforce ecosystem. These objects act as a window to this seamlessly, bridging the gap between your Salesforce organization and external databases, web services, or other systems. While Salesforce or external object, you can connect and interact with data residing outside of your Salesforce org, treating it as if it were natively on your Salesforce platform. And there are just the last pointer. External objects are denoted by underscore underscore x in your org whenever they're created. Um, we're going to move forward to use cases and benefits. So on the left hand side, there are standard objects, which you can see, which are foundational elements in the vertical cloud applications. These typically includes account, contact, leads, opportunities, products, etc., serving as essential entities that comes with every organization when you sign up. On the right hand side, there are custom objects, which allow businesses to create their own entities tailored to their specific need. Now, on the extreme right-hand side, you can see external objects. External objects are introduced in this context, representing data that is shaped to align with the business unique requirement. External objects closely resemble custom objects, with the key distinction, and I would say the major distinction, is that the data that they reference resides externally. Just to give you an example, assume that you have invoice data in AWS. Rather than integrating Salesforce and AWS in a traditional integration, you could use Salesforce Connect to link up the two systems. When a users pull up the invoice related list on the account record, a real time call is made through the connector and the results are returned and displayed in the related list. And basically, you're not leaving the Salesforce UI, you're just on there, you're looking at account record, and on the related list, even though it's an external object, you're seeing data that is not there in your Salesforce, or you're seeing data that is kind of like, is somewhere else, maybe external database, maybe another Salesforce org. So that's that. Moving to sorry, to the next slide. Um, Patterns for integrating and accessing external data sources. So we have kind of like four patterns. I would say four structures or four mechanisms to connect. One is integrating with OData provider. The other is with connection to middleware, could be MuleSoft, Boomi, etc. Custom connector with Apex, connecting Salesforce to Salesforce. Just to give you a little bit idea of what these four are. So first, we're going to talk about integrating with OData provider. Salesforce supports OData version 2 and 4 for integrating with existing data providers. This integration typically is very straightforward, and it's kind of like point and click and use point and click process to sync external objects with some minor adjustments that you might need to do on your Salesforce end. So that's how the OData work. Again, we're going to move forward to connection to middleware. Salesforce allows for integration with middleware solutions like MuleSoft, Boomi, which have their which have providers. And then for situations where none of the predefined integration options fit, Salesforce provides the flexibility to create a custom connector using Apex, and that's where custom connector with Apex comes in handy. The last is connecting Salesforce to Salesforce. Salesforce offers the capability to connect multiple Salesforce organizations, allowing users to access and mix data from various Salesforce org, enhancing data collaboration and integration options. And this is I have kind of like prepared a walkthrough for you guys. So I'm using Salesforce to Salesforce, and I'm going to be showing you how it works at the end once I'm done with the presentation. So that's that. Moving forward to setting up external objects. So setting up external objects is kind of like pretty straightforward. It's exactly how you set up custom objects within your Salesforce org. You just go to the setup, write external objects. You can you can create external objects, create fields and stuff like that. But having said that, I do not find that way kind of like helpful, because there are certain limitations that comes in place. So I think the other way that you can create external object is, so I'll give you an example. So let's say the first thing that you have before setting up external object, you have to create an external data source. An external data source is like the data that you basically, it's like you want to connect your Salesforce org with some other system. It could be an it could be Oracle database, it could be another Salesforce org, so stuff like that. Once you set up the external data source, and once you've put in all such as authentication and connection settings are done, Salesforce give you an option of validation and sync. In some orgs I've seen it just says validate, and some I've seen it as validate and sync. But most recently I'm seeing it as validate and sync. So it's validate and sync as of now. You click on validate and sync um, button to retrieve the metadata of the external data source, including the tables and fields. Now, basically, what it does is it shows you all the objects that are there in your external system, or I would say or all the tables that are there in the external tables. You just, kind of like select which tables or objects you want to bring in your Salesforce or external objects, and you just press done or save, you're pretty good to go. So that's how an external objects are created. One way is you can directly create it. The other way is creating an external data source, which I found pretty easy, because there is very less chance of you messing up the data types of the external objects, or the character limits, or some other stuff as well. So that's about how you set up external objects. Moving forward to validate external object considerations. So you may need to revalidate, because a new field. So let's say you have already connected one Salesforce org to another Salesforce org. Now the problem is on your kind of like Salesforce org that you are kind of like fetching in your Salesforce org has a change of field type, or maybe there's a new field that is created. So you may need to do the revalidation, because the new field, or I would say if a data type was changed, then you have to reinitiate the validation thing, revalidation within your org, so that all the data types and all the new fields are brought into your Salesforce org. So that's the purpose of revalidation. That's how I see it. We don't use it that often, but it's kind of like a handy tool. You don't just need to go manually to your external objects and create the field, or maybe change the data type of the field that is required. You just go validate and resync, and that's about it. Okay, moving on to the external objects relationships. So in Salesforce, I'm not going to talk about lookup relationships because I'm assuming everybody that is there on the call knows what a lookup relationship and how it functions. I would primarily be focusing on external lookup and indirect lookup. So in Salesforce, we have this concept called an external lookup relationship. Think of it as a way to connect two different types of data. Specifically, it links a child object to a parent external object. Now, when we say external object, we mean data that is not stored within Salesforce itself, but comes from an external source like another system or database, as mentioned before. So basically, the connection between these object is based on matching values. And now you guys got to listen to this carefully because it's not pretty straightforward. Setting up indirect or external location, lookup is not that straightforward. So um, in the parent external object, there's usually a standard field which is called external ID, and I'll show you in a while too. The value in this field are compared to the values in the external lookup relationship field of this object. For child object, the value in its external lookup relationship field are sourced from a specific field in the parent external object. We call this as an external column name. Now again, you got to keep a few things in mind as well. So there's an automatic mapping that is done here. So let's say if I'm syncing account and contact together in one go, Salesforce try to create external lookups or indirect lookup for you. Sorry, tries to create external lookups for you. But let's say if you're not, if you have sync account, let's say today, and you sync contact tomorrow or after a couple of hours, there's a very high chance that Salesforce not create external lookups for you. So you might have to go and manually create external lookups for yourself. And in the org where we are kind of like fetching external data, you will only get ID. So created by, let's say created by would be like 001 XYZ. You will not find any name like Shams Aslan or stuff like that, because the external lookups is not created, and it is kind of like within the Salesforce, or Salesforce create them as text values. Um, so that is that. So now let's talk about the indirect lookup relationship. This is another object, and it can be either a standard Salesforce object or a custom object that you've created to store unique data for your business. So the indirect lookup relationship connects these two objects together. When you create this connection, you need to specify how they're related. You choose a field in the parent object that is unique and can be used to match records. This is kind of like often referred to as an external ID field on the parent object. The field's values will be used to find matches in the child external object. So these two fields are basically like, are there to kind of like establish the connection between the two objects. Now, crucial detail: if the external system uses the different capitalization of values in the external column name, you need to make sure that the parent objects field is also set to be case sensitive. This is important because otherwise you might not get accurate matches. Um, so again, I'll just throw in two use cases that I think might help people understand what indirect or external lookup would be. So I'm going to give you an example of an indirect lookup first. Imagine a company that sells product online. They have a product catalog stored in an external database. To integrate this catalog into Salesforce, they create an indirect lookup relationship between a product object in Salesforce and external database. Another use case for now, I'm going to give a use case for external objects because I got to think about it as well. Let's say you have a manufacturing company that needs to manage its vendors and purchase orders efficiently. To streamline their operations and keep all relevant data within Salesforce, they create external objects for both vendors and purchase order and establish an external lookup relationship between them. So basically, both of the objects are coming from outside, but you want to show in within Salesforce, so you create an external lookup. Uh, Next. So These are the fields that are supported when you are kind of like you know, creating fields on an external objects. But there is a caveat. You cannot create quite a few fields. To mention some of them, you cannot create, uh, roll-up summary fields. You cannot create formula fields. You cannot create auto number fields. You cannot create geolocation fields. The address fields cannot be created. Date, time fields cannot be created, and so on, so on. So these are field types are not supported. So whenever you're using external objects, just you have to keep this in mind that there is a certain limitation to the fields that you might want to use. So just to keep in mind. Um, Now I'm going to move to another slide, which is about SOQL consideration. I have mentioned two major consideration that I thought is um, um, is to share with you guys, but I will share you know one or two extra that I have in my mind as of on top of my head. So first is external socket does not support long text area for query search. Text is supported only. Um, each socket query can have up to 4 joins across external objects and other types of objects. Each join requires a separate round trip to the external system when executing the query, expecting longer response time because there are joins and data is fetched from your external system. So of course, there are separate round trip times to the external system, and there are separate API hits to the external system. Then the other one, which I think was really important, is external objects don't support the following aggregate functions and classes, which is average, count, having clause, group by, max, min, sum. And there are a couple of more socket limitations that you might be able to find when you go through the Salesforce documentation. But these two or the three that I mentioned are very important. And when you're using Sockle, it's very important to keep in mind that when you're using joins, it's going to take a little bit longer because there are joins involved. So data is being fetched from kind of like an external database or it takes a little bit longer. I'm going to talk about reporting considerations. Again, there are quite a few reporting considerations I have mentioned that I thought would be most important. But then again, I'm going to try to share some reporting considerations that are in my mind and not on the slide. So okay, so the first is so when you run a report, your org performs a request callout for each external object in the report. So that's the first consideration to keep in mind. Whenever you are using a join report, your org perform a separate callout for every single block that is there. So if there are two blocks, two callouts would be made. When a report includes an external objects, the report fetches up to 2000 records for the primary object. This limit applies regardless of whether the primary object is a standard, custom, external. So there's a limit of 2000 records that you can fetch, and that is that. And as is true for all callouts for external objects, report callouts are limited by the Salesforce Connect adapters in use. So basically, Salesforce Connect is kind of like, I would say they go hand in hand with external objects, and so, most of the limitations are dependent on Salesforce Connect. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of limitations that you know at the end of the presentation, that what are the limitations when you use OData 2.0 and 4.0, and what are the limitations um, that you can kind of like bypass using OData 2.0 and 4.0. So these are some of the limitations that I wanted to share that I thought was important. Yeah, just to let you know, bucket and bucket fields are not supported. Historical trend reporting is not there. So these are two, again, important things to keep in mind. To go to the next slide, benefits of external objects: ease of setup, data virtualization, read and write operations, real-time data, standard functionality, and mobile data. I'll go through in a little bit of detail, not too much detail, but a little bit of detail. So ease of setup. External objects can be effortlessly configured through Salesforce user interface. This streamlines the process and empowers Salesforce administrators, consultants, architects who are not really, inclined or are not developers. They can establish this kind of integration using external systems. We talk about data virtualization. External objects serve as an effective means to virtualize data. This entails storing data in an external system and making it accessible to users on demand. And it's at times it's very important to keep this in mind because the storage on Salesforce platform is not cheap. It is quite expensive, and at times you want to show data that to your end users, or that that you don't want to store on Salesforce because it's going to cost you. So external objects, again, a very handy tool. to keep in mind. But I'm excited that you also have to keep the limitations of this in your mind as well. The next is read and write capabilities. External objects not only facilitate the retrieval of data from external system, but also gives user the capability to directly update the records within the source system. And I'm going to show you this as well. So this is one thing. Again, we move to the real-time data. Another advantage that I think of your external object is that the ability to access data in real time when you access a tab. And just to mention it, that as we create tabs for custom objects, we can create tabs for external objects as well. So when you access a tab associated with an external object, a REST call is initiated to the endpoint, and the results are instantly retrieved. Moving forward to standard user experience, external objects do come with certain limitations, such as constraint on features like free text search, bracket views, etc., etc. However, these limitations actually work in favor of users because users do not need to go out of Salesforce to see external database or external data. They can directly see the data within the Salesforce, which is kind of like pretty handy and pretty useful. Um, that is that. Oh yeah, there's one thing that I missed, which is mobile data. Another noteworthy feature is the availability of external objects on mobile devices. This means that users are not confined of accessing data solely when they are at their desktops. They can access external objects from anywhere at any time, as long they have a internet connection and a mobile phone. Um, moving forward to the considerations of external objects. So basically, there are three things that I feel like: limited standard functionality, limited custom fields, reporting consideration. We've talked about each in the previous slides, but I'm going to give you a little bit of summary of every single thing. So, you know, when we talk about limited standard functionality, external lack access to standard functionality commonly available for custom object. Like absence of flows, you cannot use flows, approval processes, field history tracking. I haven't seen an option to take notes, which is kind of like interesting. So it is crucial to thoroughly think about your business requirement. External objects may not align with your needs, so you have to think a lot before you start implementing. It seems like a feasible solution at first, but once you implement it down the line, when you're like, there are more requirements coming in, you're like, oh, okay, this is not supported, and then you might have a technical debt in place, and you have to kind of like redo the entire thing. So it's very important to think about the this requirements holistically and then implement it. Then there is limited custom fields, as I mentioned. Then currency fields is not supported. Auto number is not supported. Master data is not supported. So if you want to perform, let's say, roll up summary calculation, then kind of like it sucks, but you don't have that option. And it makes sense to not have that features because the data is not within the org; it's coming from outside. So you cannot have the roll up summary calculation. But you never know. Salesforce might come up with these features, later down the line. And then lastly, you've got to talk about reporting considerations. When working with external objects, specific considerations arise concerning reporting. Real-time data retrieval from external system may result in longer report execution time. Cross filters are not supported for external object. It's also worth noting that running a report involving an external object trigger a call out to the external system. So basically, it counts to your total call out limit. So that was that, and so I think I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna show you some stuff about how this can be set up. I've already set up in my org, so I'm not gonna do the entire setup, but I'm gonna walk you through because setting it up takes a little bit of time. You have to have your credentials in place. You have to create relationships and reports and stuff like so. Most of the stuff that I'm gonna show you is there. Um, is already created, but I'm gonna walk you through on how. So I'm going to minimize my screen. Shams, can you let me know you guys can see the Salesforce org?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So this is my one org, which is named Tectonic 2B, and there's another org which is Tectonic 13B. So I'm gonna go to external data source first. So let me just quickly type it again. So how do we create external objects? Oh damn. Let me oopsie. Something happened. Wait. Interesting. I'm connected.
Yeah, I can
It
hear
might
you
take
fine.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Probably something acted up. Maybe give me 2 minutes. It times it acts up.
yeah, no worries.
Shams, just give me a second. Let me update my change. Install this.
Sure, sounds good to me.
So I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute and I'm gonna reshare it again. Uh, can you see my screen now?
Yep, it's visible.
Cool. So the first thing on how you can set up external objects is you go to external data source. Of course, you can go and create external objects directly, but I have created external data source. That's how I prefer doing it, and I'm going to show you because I feel like it's easier to set up that way. So this is the name of the data source. Could be anything. It could be Oracle database. It could be any other thing. So I go to Aslan Trailblazers, and sorry, my naming convention. I was creating this demo in a very short time, so I didn't have much time to think about my naming convention. So I'll go here. So I'll just press edit and show you what it does. So this is the name, external data source name, anything. I'm using connect cross org. Cross org is an adapter that is used to connect one Salesforce org with another Salesforce org because I don't have any other database to show you as of now. So I'm using this. But you can see you have another option. You have GraphQL, OData 2.0, 4.0. They have a 4.0 one, which is a new thing. There's a federated search, simple URL. And since I'm connecting with my kind of like DevOps, I'm using a production URL, the API, enable search. Now, I'm going to talk about this thing for a second. Enable search basically enables Social and Salesforce global search searches for the external to control which external object searches select external object. So basically, this allows you to search for records that are synced but are not in your org. So to say, let's say you're syncing contacts from your another Salesforce org, and there is a record in that Salesforce org by the name of, let's say, John, and you want to search John within the source org, then you have to enable it, right? And then there's another option which is called writable external objects. This means whatever updates you do to your external data within the org that I'm in, those updates would be reflected on the actual records that are in the external data store or external Salesforce org. Hope I am able to clarify that. You go to identify identity type. There are two. There are per user, I believe. Yeah, it's name principal. I'm using name principal. Password authentication. You can go with OAuth 2.0, and then that's my username and that's my password. I'm going to cancel it. So that's the first thing. Creating it, you just click save. You're done, and then we're going to do one thing. We're going to go and press validate and sync. So now when you go to validate and sync, you should see objects that are in your external Salesforce org. So there are quite a few objects that are there. I have synced account. You can see it's already synced. I've synced accounts. I've synced context, and I've synced cases for myself. So that's what you do. Once that is done, you sync it. You go back here and you go all the way down and you can see, in fact, I've also synced user as well, and I'm going to show you why I've done that. So these are my external objects. Now if I go to my external objects real quick, oh, and before I show you external, it's very important, once you've synced your external object, you have to create a tab. So it's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward. It's exactly how you would create a tab for any of the custom objects, and I believe external objects do show under the custom objects heading within the tab manager. Yeah, so these are three tabs that I'm using: account, cases, and contacts. Yeah, these are external tables, but I've created tabs so that I can access them. Now I'm going to show you external objects. Let's open contact for a bit. So it's in development, of course, because once I haven't changed it to deployed because it's kind of like a demo. It's kind of like a walkthrough to you guys, but when you're working in real time, you have to change it to deployed. Again, you have to. So let's say there was one thing that I showed you, enable search. So let's say enable search is on, and it's turned on for your entire org. But let's say I don't want users to search, to search for contacts within my team. I want them to search external accounts, external contact, external cases, but not contacts. So what I'm going to do, I have to turn this on. I'm going to go here. I'm going to deselect this option so that the search is kind of like invalid for the external contact. Then I've enabled reports. I'm going to show you real quick. API name is underscore underscore X. When I was talking about external, sorry, indirect and external lookup, this is the external ID that I was talking about. It is automatically created, and all the other fields, even all the standard fields that you will have on the other org, will be shown as underscore underscore C because they are all custom fields, right? Um, so this is that. I'm gonna show you. Okay, this is my another org. Wait, sorry. So this is my another org. Let's see if I have a contact in place. There's a record by the name of Child or Arslan. I'm gonna search it from global search, and let's see if it's gonna search for me. Community service. And at times it takes a little bit of time. So if I click this record, this will open up an external contact record for me. And if I click view, this will open up that record in the external Salesforce app, which I don't want to do it at this point. So I'm going to leave it. And it's giving me an error. It's probably something to do. And it started happening a couple of minutes ago. So what I'm gonna do is in fact gonna switch back to classic to see if it works. I think it will work because it's probably had to do with my internet connection at this point in time. I'm gonna go here, and this. So this is the record that is there, and so the email is test12, and this is external contact record as I've shown you, right? If I open, you can see the email is test12. Now, what writable option gives you an option? Let's say I am at admin, I'm updating the email address. Let's say I'm saying, hey, it's not test12, it's test 921, whatever. You can add anything, right? And I click on save. So 921 email is changed. Let's go here. It's test12, and I'm going to refresh it. And this is the org where the data was actually created. This is the contact record. See, it's updated. So it's writable. There's an update that's done. Um, okay, cool. I'm going to show you one more thing. I think there was a question as well the um, about the security. For external objects, you can change FLS. You can give permissions via profiles or permission set, but there is no control of the data, or I would say records. So basically, that means you cannot control it. You cannot create sharing rules. There's no role hierarchy for that, stuff like that. Let me quickly go to the admin stuff. Where is admin? Okay, here we go. And sorry, I'm using Classic because Lightning takes a little longer, so I'm going to go to external. You see, I have 4 objects. I have full permission because I'm a system administrator. I can control the permissions as well from here for external objects. I can control FLS for the fields that are there on the external object, right? So that can be done. I'm going to quickly go and show you guys reports. And for reports, I'm going to try to go and use where is reports. Here we go. So I'm going to go here. I've already created a report, but I can show you how it's created. I'm not going to create it because um, So you go here, and if I write, I've renamed some tabs. So I've named contacts too, which is kind of like an external contact. I should have named it external account, external cases, external contact. But like I said, excuse my naming convention for this walkthrough. So I can write contact, select the report type. No, wait, I need to go all. So if I go here, there is a contact too. If I start report, there's no fields. I'm gonna add a column real quick. I'm gonna get contact to ID. So you see X at the first, which means it's not on your database. So I'm gonna go and maybe what do you want to do? Let's go for email. So you see there is an email of test921 and yada yada. This is how you can create a report, and it's kind of like give you lots of flexibility. You can create reports for the data that is not there on your system, which is incredible. Like, you can create reports on the fly for the data that you just need to review, which is not there on your Salesforce, but it is somewhere else in somebody's, or I would say in some other system, which is incredible. It gives you a lot of power. I'm going to show you one real quick thing. And for that, I will go back to Classic because I feel like that record would not open up in um, so I'm gonna go here. Where is my contact? Should be contacts too. I'm gonna show you one thing. I'm not gonna go through it because it's pretty similar. So I'm gonna show you an external lookup in place. So you can see created by ID is coming as an ID, even though it is, even though it was even though I have sync user, I have sync contact, it should have appended the Salesforce should have automatically you should have created external lookup. But the thing here is that I did not sync user at the same time when I sync contact. So I synced contact, let's say, on Monday, and I sync user on Tuesday. So the Salesforce created a text field for this. Now I'm going to be quickly converting this to a lookup, and since we have everything in place, so I'm going to go here, and this is the field created by ID, which is an alias, which is being used to match to the parent external object. So this is very important, right? And since I'm kind of like changing the data type of this field, so it's not going to seems I would say complex, but when you're creating a new external lookup, that's then you have to keep this in mind that this is the alias is very important for matching up. So I'm going to go edit. I'm gonna go change field type. I'm not gonna change anything. I'm just gonna go to, where are you, my friend? You go to external lookup. I'm gonna next, and I'm gonna relate to user. User again, it's an external object, so that's why I have to use external alias because both of the objects are externally placed. And I think we have a length in place. We have contacts will enable anything you want. I don't want to worry about it too much. And this should, okay, now let me go and see if it is doing that. Created by ID, it is external lookup user, so it's done. Now let me refresh it. Hopefully it should change. Yep, now we have a lookup, which is an external lookup. So if I open up user, I'll open up just to, this is the user that is not on my org. This is the user that is on my the external Salesforce org, and you can see it's denoted by, it should be somewhere, it's denoted by user underscore underscore X. So that's about it, and that's how you can see the contacts and stuff like that. It's pretty simple. Um, okay, so there's one thing that I would like to discuss before kind of like ending this out. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, but I want to share one thing. Um, so basically, there is an option that you get, which is called, no, wait, what was that called? In fact, let me share my screen so I can show you those options. Yeah, it's called high data volume. I may have to talk about it. So basically, there's an option of high data volume, and when you're using crosswalk adapter, you might not get that option, high data volume. That option is usually available when you're using OData 2.0 or 4.0, and I'm pretty sure it would be available when you're using 4.01 connection. So what it does is, there are certain limitations of SQL queries and stuff like that. That hey, that you cannot retrieve more than 100,000 records, and you cannot create more than 100 external objects within your org. So to overcome these limitations, there's an option called high data volume. However, enabling this feature introduces additional constraints. Let's say um, the experience is restricted, limited external objects to classic experience. There's no mobile access, and there are quite a few other restrictions. So so whenever if you're using external objects, or if you're establishing external data source using OData 2.0 or 4.0, and you're planning to use high data volume checkbox as true, then you still have to keep certain things in mind. That even though it gives you a little bit more flexibility, but having said that, it also have its kind of like cons and stuff like that. So I think I have covered most part of it, and Shams, I'm trying to see the questions.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
trying to answer the questions posted on the chat to the best of my abilities. I have left one for you though. It's
so,
better.
yeah, so you have answered quite a few. I'm seeing if I see a question from our beloved friend as well. So I'm going to try to address this question. We can only control the object permissions.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
is that available? What potential reasons could explain if we don't see the desired object when attempting to create an uh, if you do not see the desired object when attempting to create an indirect relation, and additionally, what steps can be taken to debug issues that may arise? So, Faisal, I have an answer to this question. And when you're creating an indirect relationship, yes, the reason that you don't see let's say I'm establishing a relationship between an external product with an account, right? And when I'm creating an indirect lookup on external product, I'm not seeing account. The problem, or the reason you're not seeing, is that every external product needs to be connected to an account, and in order to connect to an account, there is a prerequisite for it. You have to first create an external ID field on an account, which is going to be text type. The data type would be text, and then you have to make sure that it has an 18 digit or 20 digit or 40 characters length, or whatever you set it. So, and it should be unique, and it should be external. Once you do that, you go to your external product, you create an indirect lookup. Once you select, you will get an option to select the object for sure. You get an option to select the object, and then the next option that you're going to get is, which you never get when you're using lookup or master data, is like target field. I think it's something says target field. That means that which field should the external product connect to on an account. So hopefully that answers your question. And Faisal, if you want, I can show it to you as well when we meet on Monday as well. um,
Awesome. Otherwise, I think we are good to go.
I think there are no other questions.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Shams.
Yeah, you too. Bye.